The next meeting will be with Zelensky and Putin, or Zelensky and Putin and me. I'll be there if they need, but I want to have a meeting set up between the two leaders. I was a little bothered by the fact that Zelensky was saying, well, I have to get constitutional approval. I mean,
yeah, this is all Zelensky's fault. Oh, my Lord. Yeah. He looked so good. He looked so good. What was he wearing? What was he wearing? What was Ukraine wearing? He's like so rapist mindset on this, where it's like, nope, this was Zelensky's fault, not Putin. I said, Vladimir, stop. And he didn't stop, but also it was still Zelensky. Is he actually blaming Zelensky? Yes. It's maximalist cope. Like, he could, in a way, it makes sense that he's doing this because it's still like kind of takes away the responsibility from America if you were to even present it as such. Because like on the one hand, he's like, this is Biden's war. This is Biden's war. Okay. But Zelensky in and of himself is the least responsible party for why Russia invaded Ukraine. Okay. Obviously, the number one party responsible here is Vladimir Putin, which Trump actively refuses to call out. Let's say that's partially because he wants to come to a negotiated settlement and stop the bloodshed, like he claims he does want to stop the bloodshed. Okay. And he's having a hard time with these negotiations because Vladimir Putin seemingly is actively dangling negotiations in front of Donald Trump like a fucking carrot, and he just keeps biting onto that carrot. And a part of that continuation of negotiations is to say, keep shitting on Zelensky, keep shitting on Zelensky, and that's what he keeps doing over and over again. But like, none of this, in my opinion, is reaching closer to a reasonable settlement whatsoever. And ultimately, there is one party that is still more responsible than Zelensky, and that is the previous American administration. If you want to fucking call them out, you can call them out if you want to, you know? Out of all the parties involved, I would say Ukraine is the least responsible for its own invasion. I know that there are Z pushers in here who get mad at me for saying this and say that I've like sold out and I'm actually a NATO, I'm a Brandonist NATOist or whatever. But that is the reality. How the fuck is this Zelensky's fault? Ukraine is invaded by Russia. Russia is the primary responsible party. But even as far as like a continuation and a refusal to push for a ceasefire negotiation when, Ukraine had maximum leverage, I would say Western powers were more responsible in feeding lies to both the Ukrainian public and specifically Zelensky than even Zelensky himself.
He's got approval to go into war and kill everybody, but he needs approval to do a land swap because there'll be some land swapping going on. I know that through Russia and through conversations with everybody to the good, for the good of Ukraine. Good stuff, not bad stuff. Also, some bad stuff for both. So there's good and there's bad. But it's very complex because you have lines that are very uneven, and there'll be some swapping, there'll be some changes in land. And
what land is Russia swapping? I don't even know what he's saying here. What the fuck did Vladimir Putin tell Witkoff that he just thinks, what, Alaska? If he is capable of forcibly taking back territory that Russia currently has annexed and occupied, I'm going to be honest, that would be a spectacular development. Do I believe that even for a moment? No. Because Vladimir Putin's starting point in the negotiations process in this last round of quote-unquote ceasefires was not only the legal annexation, like the legal recognition from the United States for annexing the territories that Russia currently occupies, which is deep into eastern Ukraine, but then also on top of that, additional territories that he was demanding that he hadn't even reached out, that he hadn't even like implemented any sort of like military annexation on. So they had maximalist goals here, which was to say, oh, we'll just keep pushing if you don't give us the additional Ukrainian territory that we demand. So I don't really know where he's getting this information from.
The word that they will use is, they make changes. We're going to change the lines, the battle lines. Russia's occupied a big portion of Ukraine. They've occupied some very prime territory. We're going to try and get some of that territory back for Ukraine. But they've taken some very prime...
He's like, I'm giving Canada to Russia. He's going to be like, in exchange for certain occupied territories, I'm giving Canada to Russia. Canada is now a part of Russia, Russia. That's right. Some prime territory. Russia is now reaching out, becoming the crown jewel on top of the world, wearing the world like a crown. We're giving them Greenland to fuck it.
territory. They've taken largely ocean, in real estate we call it oceanfront property. That's always the most valuable property. If you're in a lake, a river, or an ocean, it's always the best property. Well,
Chill, dog. Don't give him any ideas. Bro, I don't even fucking know anymore, okay? I don't even know anymore. What was Putin's reason for the invasion? Just expansion? It's always just expansion. That is the ultimate goal here.
A lot of people don't know that Ukraine was largely 1,000 miles of ocean. That's gone. Other than one small area, Odessa. It's a small area. There's just a little bit of water left. So I'm going to go and see the parameters. Now, I may leave and say, good luck, and that'll be the end. I may say this is not going to be settled. I mean, there are those that believe that Putin wanted all of Ukraine. I happen to be one of them, by the way. I think if it weren't for me, he would not be even talking to anybody else right now. But I'm going to meet with him. We're going to see what the parameters are. I'm then going to call up President Zelensky and the European leaders right after the meeting, yeah. And I'm going to tell them what kind of a deal. I'm not going to make a deal. It's not up to me to make a deal. I think a deal should be made for both. I think Russia has to get back into building their country. It's a massive country. I think they have 11 time zones, if you can believe it. It's a massive, it's by far, from the standpoint of land, it's by far the largest.
From the
They have
standpoint of land.
tremendous potential in Russia to do well. They're not doing well. Their economy is not doing well right now because it's been very well disturbed by this. It doesn't help when the President of the United States tells their largest or second largest oil buyer that we're putting a 50% tariff on you if you buy oil from Russia. That was a big blow. And then they say, gee, he wasn't so tough. Nobody else would have done that. And I haven't stopped there. I mean, look, I was all set to do things far bigger than that, but I got a call that they'd like to meet, and I'm going to see what they want to meet about. I'd like to see a ceasefire. I'd like to see the best deal that could be made for both parties. It takes two to tango, right? So ultimately, I'll have a meeting next week. I had a great relationship with him, considering the fact that, I was not nice to him because of the pipeline. I ended the pipeline. I also gave the javelins. Do you ever hear of a javelin? Javelin is called a tank buster. They say that Obama gave them sheets and I gave them javelins. If it weren't for me, all those tanks that were destroyed at the...
Remember when he floated pre-approved? Remember when he floated pre-approved weapon shipments stopping unless the Ukrainian government comes up with blackmail against his possible opposition in the upcoming election, and then got impeached for it? And then he turned around and said it was a perfect phone call. I remember that was a literal thing that he did. It seems like a lifetime ago. That was one of his impeachments, where he just straight up was like, I'll keep giving you these weapons, okay? I'll keep giving you these weapons. You just got to find some blackmail. If you don't fucking find some blackmail against the Biden administration, I will literally stop giving you these weapons that Congress had approved. And that's the one thing you can't do as president. You can't stop the flow of weapons to any country whatsoever. And of course, that was part of the reason why he got fucking impeached. I completely forgot he's been impeached twice. Perfect phone call. It's great. It's great. There is no floating of an impeachment nowadays. It's fucking meaningless because he bouldered his way through it. He fucking bouldered his way through it. Teflon Don, no shame whatsoever. I mean, he did fucking January 6th, and he's the president now.
First days of the war, because the tanks got stuck in the mud. Some commander made a better... they would have been in Kiev in 4 hours going down the highway. But a Russian general made a brilliant decision to go through the farmland instead. And they just had torrential rains, and the rains were so bad, and it was mud, and those tanks got stuck in the mud. I don't know who that general is, but knowing Vladimir, he's probably not around any longer, because all those tanks...
Dude, he still speaks so fondly of Vladimir Putin as opposed to Zelensky, which is, again, it's weird. It's just weird, It's just weird.
Tanks were stuck in the mud, and they went along with the javelins. I gave them the javelins. You know that, right? I gave them javelins. They gave them sheets. But I'm going to meet with President Putin, and we're going to see what he has in mind. And if it's a fair deal, I'll reveal it to the European Union leaders and to the NATO.
It's not weird. Love finds a way. It's just you that doesn't know true love like Donnie and Vlad. Fair. Putin had Ukraine as the apple of his eye, and Vladimir Putin is the apple of my eye.
Leaders, and also to President Zelensky. I think out of respect, I'll call him first, and then I'll call them after. And I may say, lots of luck, keep fighting, or I may say we can make a deal.
If not,
I will tell you this, I've seen a poll coming out of Ukraine. 88% of the people would like to see a deal made. And if
I don't understand why this motherfucker won't just like say the correct number, okay? Even when he's right, he's still wrong, which I don't understand. I don't think it's 88%. I think it's like 79%. Why is it that, like, that's already a fucking unimaginably high number of Ukrainians that want to come to a negotiated settlement and do not want to continue fighting. But it's like, even when he says the correct thing, he has to still lie. I don't know why. It's so weird. It's like 79%, isn't it? No, he said 88%, 98% say they want to stop the war. They want to negotiate with Russia.
If you go back 3 years, everybody was gung-ho for war. You know, everybody's gung-ho for war until you have it. It's an amazing thing. I had it with a couple of countries where I couldn't get a deal done with one particular country. And I just couldn't. The guy's great. He's a friend of mine.
Yeah, this is what he's talking about.
Good leader.
It's 73%.
I couldn't get the deal done.
Sorry.
And then he went into war for a short period of time. You know where I'm talking about.
Where is it? What is the number? Oh, it's 69%. Sorry, it's not even 79%.
Killed all over the place.
That's a sexy number. He could have just said 70%. Only 24% of Ukrainians inside Ukraine want to keep fighting until the war until victory, whereas nearly 100% of Ukrainians given major platforms of Western media and politics, i.e. useful Ukrainians, favor continuing the war until victory. Listen to Ukrainian voices except when they don't want you to keep dying en masse. For Brussels and Washington, says Mark Ames exiled. It's 69%. 69% of Ukrainians don't want the continuation of the war, even though they think it will still continue. They do not believe that Vladimir Putin is going to come to a negotiated settlement to the end of this war. Instead, they think that it will continue. Does that include giving up parts of Ukraine? I think, yeah. I mean, that's basically what it is.
And he went through 1 week of war, and I was able to get the deal done. He said, this is nasty. Yes, please.
Just to follow on what you were saying there. First of all, Volodymyr Zelensky is not invited on Friday?
He wasn't a part of it. I would say he could go, but he's gone to a lot of meetings. You know, he's been there for three
Like,
and a
I'm literally watching Donald Trump currently.
half years, nothing happened.
And what is the definition?
I mean, do you want somebody that's been doing this for 3.5 years? What's the definition of a good deal? I'll tell you after I hear what the deal is. Because there could be many definitions. You know, you're talking about a very large and complex situation. Now, I tell you, the war that I just settled with Azerbaijan and with, as you know, and Armenia was almost as complex as this one, having to do with route trade.
Meeting on Friday with Vladimir Putin.
Well, we're going to have a meeting with Vladimir Putin, and at the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be.
Dude, I'm gonna be honest. Look, this is like, I'm getting a little blue on here, but everything that I have seen thus far from Donald Trump, specifically on this issue, okay, leads me to believe that he absolutely is incapable of figuring out what Vladimir Putin wants. As a matter of fact, his instincts are so bad that if he were to fire off the hip and then immediately turn around and do the exact opposite of what he thinks Vladimir Putin wants to do, that'd probably be more successful in terms of like setting setting hard lines or whatever. I mean, he has all but admitted that. He admitted it himself. He just kept saying, like, we have wonderful calls. We have wonderful phone calls where we're talking about this and that. But then Melania comes in and says, did you see Vladimir hit Kiev again? I say, why? Why, Vladimir? Why? And he's done this 4 times, 5 times, not any longer. And it's like, dude, after the second time, you got to realize that this motherfucker you got to try something different, you know? And like, I don't think the solution is to force, to deport like Ukrainian men and force them into the fucking front lines or something. Cause like, that's the only other way that you can actually bring Ukraine the necessary manpower that they need to be able to successfully push back against further Russian occupation. Okay. A steady flow of arms is probably not going to solve this problem. And I've said this already, because the reality of the matter is that this conflict is going to end on the conditions set forth by the battle lines. And right now, that heavily favors Russia. That's the reason why Vladimir Putin is consistently saying, oh, I'll negotiate, but except I won't negotiate at all. Like, undermining our proxy in this situation consistently while simultaneously getting washed by Vladimir Putin over and over again, only to turn back and like kiss the ring is so stupid.
How will you know that?
Because that's what I do. I make deals.
Mr. President.
Please, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to ask you two questions, one about China, one about Russia, if I could. On China, your administration agreed to send the most advanced or advanced NVIDIA and AMD. Do you see a time, Mr. President, when there could be normal trade between the U.S. and Russia? Should your meeting go well, should there be peace?
I do. Russia has a very valuable piece of land. If Vladimir Putin would go toward business instead of toward war, you know, it's a warring nation. That's what they do. They fight a lot of wars. A friend of mine said Russia's tough because they just keep on fighting. They beat Hitler, so did we, and they beat Napoleon. You know, they've been doing this for a long time. I asked a question to a very, very smart man that some people like and some people
Maybe he's just a
don't
Russophile.
like. Viktor Orban, right, from Hungary, the head of Hungary, and he's in that same area and knows the two countries very well. I said, this was before Biden didn't do anything to get us out of it. He could have gotten us out of that. It would have never happened. I said, so can Russia be beaten by Ukraine? He looked at me like, what a stupid question. He said, Russia's a massive country, and they win their country and they win their life through wars. They fight wars. That's what they do. He said, China beats you with trade. Russia beats you with war.
Wait,
It was
what?
a very interesting statement. China's not.
Bro, what a fucking admission. It's weird to see. It's weird to see these kinds of admissions. And then he quickly follows up by saying, well, China's not going to beat us with trade. Also, I've put another truce, another pause on the tariffs to China.
Beating us with trade. Not when I'm in charge. But they were beating Biden with trade, but they never beat us with trade. Don't forget, China had to pay $400 billion worth of tariffs when I was last time. That was last time. And if we didn't have COVID, all of this stuff we would be loaded. We're finding hundreds of billions of dollars of cash is pouring into our country now because of tariffs. And all we're doing is we're doing what they do to us. It's so beautiful to see it. They found last month, as you saw, $25 billion of excess cash flow. They're saying, where did it come from? I said, I'll tell you where it came from. It came from a place called tariffs.
A place.
And we're doing very well. We're really doing well. But I expect to have a meeting with that. I think it'll be good, but it might be bad. And I'm here for one reason, to get rid of a war that somebody else started. Should have never happened. And if I could end it, great. Complex war, a lot of bad blood, But Zelensky's been there for 3.5 years. So if you put him in a room, now I will say this, ultimately I'm going to put the two of them in a room. I'll be there or won't be there. And I think it'll get solved.